Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UTS Endeavour, staring at the endless black void through the main viewing screen. The stars looked cold and distant, but she had learned long ago that space was never truly empty. Somewhere out there, danger always waited. The Iron Wolf's fleet had been patrolling the outer rim for 3 months now. 15 human ships, battle-scarred and tough, crewed by people who had survived things that would kill most other species in the galaxy. Earth had taught its children to be hard. When humanity finally reached the stars, they found a universe that tried to kill them at every turn. But humans were stubborn. They refused to die. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station, "we're picking up something strange. Multiple frequencies, very weak signal." Sarah walked over to the comm station. Torres was young, maybe 25, but he had already survived 2 pirate raids and a solar storm that had fried half their electronics. Like all humans, he learned fast when his life depended on it. "What kind of signal?" Sarah asked. "It's broken. Sounds like distress, but the language is all mixed up. Parts are in Galactic standard, but most of it is something else." Sarah frowned. The outer rim was supposed to be empty. No major colonies, no trade routes, just empty space and dead rocks. If someone was sending a distress signal out here, they were either very lost or in very big trouble. "Can you clean it up?" Torres worked his controls for several minutes, sweat beading on his forehead. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines and the occasional beep from monitoring stations. Finally, a voice came through the speakers. The words were broken and desperate. Sarah could understand maybe half of it. Something about homeworld under attack. Something about 3 billion lives. Something about mechanical swarms that consumed everything. "That's Zephyrian," said Dr. Yuki Tanaka from behind Sarah. The ship's xenobiologist had been working late in her lab again. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. "I recognize the language patterns," Sarah nodded. She knew about the Zephyrians. Peaceful plant eaters who lived on garden worlds and spent their time growing beautiful cities out of living trees. They were famous throughout the galaxy for their biotechnology and their complete lack of weapons. They had never fought a war in their entire recorded history. "What are they saying?" Sarah asked. Dr. Tanaka listened carefully as Torres played the message again. Her face grew pale. "They're begging for help. Their homeworld is under attack by something called the Ravager Swarm. They say their defenses are failing and they have no weapons to fight back." Ravager Swarm? Sarah had never heard the name before, but it sounded like trouble. "Wait, there's more," Dr. Tanaka said. She listened to another part of the message. "They're offering their entire technological database to anyone who can help evacuate their people." "Admiral, they're talking about 3 billion civilians." Sarah felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. 3 billion people. The Zephyrians were known to be gentle and kind. They had helped human colonies before, sharing their medical knowledge and agricultural techniques. They asked for nothing in return except friendship. "How far?" Sarah asked. "Computing now," said Navigator Jackson. His fingers danced over his controls. Jackson was an old-timer, 40 years in space, and his math was always perfect. 6 days at maximum burn, Admiral, 6 days. Sarah closed her eyes and did the math in her head. If the Zephyrians were calling for help, their situation was already desperate. 6 days might be too long, but it might also be just enough time to do something useful. "Commander Rodriguez," Sarah called to her second-in-command. "What's our current supply situation?" Rodriguez pulled up the data on his screen. He was a thin, nervous man who worried about everything, which made him excellent at logistics. "Ammunition at 80%. Food and water for 4 months. Fuel for 3 weeks of normal operations, maybe 2 weeks if we push hard. And the rest of the fleet? Similar levels across all ships. The Marines are ready for deployment, and engineering reports all ships are battle-ready." Sarah looked around the bridge. Her crew was watching her, waiting for orders. These people had followed her through hell before. They had fought pirates, hostile aliens, and the vacuum of space itself. They trusted her to make the right call. But this was different. The Zephyrians weren't asking for a fight. They were asking for rescue. 3 billion people who had never hurt anyone, who spent their lives making the galaxy a more beautiful place. "Sir," said Torres quietly. The signal just cut out. Nothing but static now, that decided it. Static meant the worst had probably happened. But sometimes the worst was just the beginning of something else. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," Sarah said into her comm. "Set course for the Zephyrian home system. Maximum burn. This is not a drill. Commander Rodriguez looked worried. Admiral, with respect, if their defenses have failed, we might be flying into a situation we can't handle. We don't know anything about this Ravager swarm. Sarah nodded. Rodriguez was right to be cautious. That's why she kept him around. But sometimes caution wasn't enough. Maybe we can't save 3 billion people, Sarah said. But maybe we can save some of them. And maybe we can make whoever did this pay for it. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward. Admiral, I should mention something. The Zephyrians, their biotechnology is the most advanced in the galaxy. If we could somehow combine their knowledge with our weapons technology. She didn't finish the sentence, but Sarah understood. The Zephyrians could grow living ships, create biological computers, and heal injuries that would cripple other species for life. Humans, on the other hand, were very good at breaking things and making weapons out of whatever they could find. First things first, Sarah said. We need to see what's left when we get there. Torres, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're responding to a distress call and might be out of contact for a while. Yes, sir. Jackson, plot the fastest course. I don't care if it's dangerous. Admiral, Jackson said with a grim smile. When has that ever stopped us? The bridge crew laughed, but it was a dark sound. They all knew what they were flying toward. In 6 days, they would either find a dead system full of wreckage or they would find something worse. Something that had destroyed a peaceful civilization of 3 billion people. But they were human. They had been born on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have ended any other species. When they finally reached the stars, they found that space was just another environment trying to kill them. And like always, they refused to die quietly. The Iron Wolves fleet turned toward the Zephyrian system and began to accelerate. Behind them, the familiar stars grew smaller. Ahead of them waited the unknown. Sarah stood on her bridge and watched the stars change color as their speed increased. In 6 days, they would learn what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of predators. They would learn if their reputation as Deathworlders was enough to make a difference. She hoped it would be. For the sake of 3 billion people who had never learned to fight, she hoped it would be enough. The Iron Wolves fleet burned through space faster than any sane crew would attempt. The acceleration pressed everyone into their seats with crushing force. Normal humans would have passed out or died from the stress. But the crews of the Iron Wolves were not normal humans. They were the children of Earth, bred for survival in the worst conditions the universe could offer. In the mess hall of the UTS Endeavor, Marines sat eating their rations while the ship shook around them. The artificial gravity fluctuated as the engines pushed beyond safe limits. Ordinary species would have been thrown around like toys, but the humans just braced themselves and kept eating. This is insane, muttered Private Garcia, trying to keep his food on his tray as the ship lurched. We're going to shake apart before we even get there. Sergeant Williams, a woman with scars across her face from a plasma burn, grinned at him. What's the matter, Garcia? Getting soft? This is nothing compared to the time we had to ride out that solar storm near Proxima. Colonel Rex Morrison walked into the mess hall and the Marines fell silent. Morrison was a big man, built like a tank with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. He had been fighting pirates and hostile aliens for 15 years and he was still alive. In the Marines, that made him practically a legend. Listen up, Morrison said, his voice cutting through the noise of the straining engines. I just got the briefing from the Admiral. What we're heading into is worse than we thought. He activated a holographic display in the center of the room. Images appeared showing massive dark ships, swarms of smaller fighters, and planets stripped bare of all life. This is what intelligence managed to piece together from intercepted transmissions. Morrison continued. The Ravager swarm. They've hit 17 systems in the past 2 years. Each time they consume everything. Plants, animals, buildings, people. They turn it all into raw materials to build more ships. The Marines studied the images with professional interest. They had seen horror before, but this was different. This was systematic extinction on a massive scale. How many ships are we talking about? Asked Corporal Kim. Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. Their dreadnoughts are the size of cities. Their fighter swarms number in the millions. Morrison paused, letting that sink in. And they've never encountered meaningful resistance. Until now, said Sergeant Williams. Morrison nodded. Until now? The Zephyrians never developed weapons technology. They're pacifists. They don't even understand the concept of war, but they're not helpless. The display changed, showing images of Zephyrian bioships. Beautiful living vessels that looked more like giant flowers than spacecraft. Cities that grew like trees reaching toward the sky. Technology that seemed to blend perfectly with nature. Their biotechnology is centuries ahead of anything we have, Morrison explained. They can grow ships that repair themselves, create living computers that think and adapt, heal injuries that would cripple us for life. Private Garcia raised his hand. Sir, how does that help us? We can't grow weapons. Morrison smiled, and it was not a nice expression. No, Garcia. We can't grow weapons, but we're very good at making them out of whatever we can find. And if any Zephyrians are still alive when we get there, we're going to teach them something new. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Martinez was having a similar conversation with his team. The engine room was filled with the roar of machinery pushed beyond its limits. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits, and the temperature was climbing past safe levels. The good news, Martinez shouted over the noise, is that Zephyrian bioships can interface with our technology. Dr. Tanaka confirmed it. Their living systems can adapt to almost anything. Engineer Chen, no relation to the Admiral, wiped sweat from her forehead. What's the bad news? The bad news is that nobody has ever tried to mount human weapons on a living ship before. We don't know if it will work, or if it will kill the ship, or if it will kill us. Sounds like a normal Tuesday, said Engineer Patel with a grin. Martinez nodded. These people had kept human ships running in impossible conditions. They had jury-rigged repairs with spare parts and duct tape. They had kept life support working when half the ship was venting atmosphere into space. If anyone could figure out how to weaponize alien biotechnology, it was this crew. Meanwhile, in her laboratory, Dr. Tanaka was studying everything the ship's computers knew about Zephyrian biology. The data was limited, but what she saw amazed her. The Zephyrians had evolved on a world with no predators. Their entire civilization was based on growth, healing, and cooperation. But that didn't make them weak. It just made them specialized for a different kind of survival. Computer, show me the genetic compatibility analysis, she said. Data flowed across her screens. What she saw made her stop and stare. The analysis was almost impossible, but the numbers didn't lie. Zephyrian neural systems were compatible with human technology interfaces. Not just compatible, they were almost perfectly designed to work together. It was as if evolution had prepared both species for this moment. Dr. Tanaka activated her comm. Admiral, I need to speak with you immediately. I found something important. On the bridge, Admiral Chen was studying tactical displays when Dr. Tanaka arrived. The scientist looked excited and terrified at the same time. Admiral, the compatibility analysis is complete. Humans and Zephyrians. We can interface directly with their bioships. Our neural patterns can control their living systems. Sarah looked up from her displays. Explain. Think of it this way, Dr. Tanaka said. The Zephyrians create ships that think and grow and heal themselves. But they've never needed to think about combat tactics or weapon systems. Humans, on the other hand, have been fighting for survival since we climbed out of the caves. You're saying we could pilot their ships? More than that. We could teach their ships to fight. Combine their biological advantages with our tactical knowledge. Create something that's never existed before. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Outside the view screen, stars streaked past as the fleet continued its desperate race toward the Zephyrian system. How long do we have before we arrive? She asked. 43 hours, reported Navigator Jackson. Dr. Tanaka, I want you to work with Colonel Morrison and Chief Martinez. Start planning how this could work. Assume we find surviving Zephyrians who are willing to try something completely insane. Admiral, said Commander Rodriguez carefully, are we really considering teaching pacifists how to fight? Sarah nodded. Sometimes Rodriguez's survival requires learning new things. The Zephyrians have spent their entire history growing and healing and creating beautiful things. But right now, beauty isn't enough. They need to learn that sometimes you have to destroy one thing to protect another. She turned back to the tactical displays. The information they had intercepted painted a clear picture. The Ravager swarm wasn't just expanding randomly. They were moving in a pattern, fleeing something even worse that was coming from the galactic core. Computer, project the swarm's movement pattern, she ordered. The display showed a spreading wave of destruction moving outward from the center of the galaxy. At the current rate, it would reach the major human colonies within 5 years. My God, whispered Rodriguez. They're not just attacking the Zephyrians. They're running from something. Sarah nodded grimly. and we're standing right in their path. The Zephyrians aren't just asking for rescue. They're asking us to make a stand that could determine the fate of the entire galaxy. The bridge was silent except for the sound of straining engines and overworked systems. Every person there understood what that meant. They weren't just racing to save 3 billion peaceful aliens. They were racing to stop a wave of destruction that could consume everything they had ever cared about. But they were human. Their entire species had been shaped by adversity, forged by challenges that would have destroyed other civilizations. They had learned to turn every disadvantage into a weapon, every weakness into strength, and now they were going to teach a species of pacifists to do the same. The Iron Wolves fleet dropped out of hyperspace and immediately wished they hadn't. The Zephyrian home system was dying. 3 beautiful garden worlds that had once been covered in living cities now looked like rotting corpses. Massive dark ships, each one the size of a human city, hung in orbit like vultures. Smaller vessels swarmed between them, moving in perfect coordination as they stripped everything useful from the planets below. "Jesus Christ," whispered Navigator Jackson. Admiral Chen stood frozen on the bridge, staring at the destruction. She had seen war before, had witnessed the aftermath of pirate raids and orbital bombardments. But this was something else entirely. This was systematic genocide on a scale that defied imagination. "Sensor report," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. 57 large vessels, approximately 2,000 smaller craft, reported Lieutenant Torres. They're harvesting the planets, Admiral, taking apart the surface layer by layer. On the main screen, they could see the process in horrible detail. The Ravager ships had deployed massive mechanical arms that reached down to the planet's surface. Where they touched, the beautiful bio-cities simply dissolved, turning into streams of raw material that flowed up into the waiting ships. "Any signs of Zephyrian resistance?" Chen asked. "Negative, Admiral. A few bioships are trying to evacuate civilians, but they're being hunted down by fighter squadrons. They have no weapons, no shields. They're just running." Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her face pale. "Admiral, at this rate of consumption, the planets will be completely stripped within 6 hours. There will be nothing left. No atmosphere, no surface, just bare rock. And the Zephyrians? The bioships can't carry many people. Maybe a few thousand have escaped, out of 3 billion. Admiral Chen felt a cold rage building in her chest. The Zephyrians were gentle creatures who had never hurt anyone. They had spent their entire civilization creating beauty, healing the sick and making the galaxy a better place. And now they were being exterminated like insects. "Communications, open a channel to all Ravager vessels," she ordered. Torres looked surprised. "Admiral?" "Do it." The channel opened. Chen could hear strange clicking and whirring, sounds of the mechanical communication of the swarm. She spoke clearly and calmly into the microphone. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Deep Space Fleet. You will cease your attack on the Zephyrian population immediately, and withdraw from this system." The clicking stopped. For a moment there was silence. Then a voice answered, mechanical and emotionless. "Unknown organic vessel. You will stand down and prepare for harvesting. Resistance is inefficient. You will be processed." Chen smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "I don't think you understand. This system is now under human protection, and humans don't surrender. Your vessel count is insufficient. Probability of victory 0%. Stand down. Computer, display our tactical situation," Chen ordered. The numbers appeared on screen and they were terrible. 57 enemy dreadnoughts against 15 human ships. 2,000 fighters against maybe 300. The enemy outgunned them by margins that made the battle look impossible. Commander Rodriguez leaned close to her ear. "Admiral, maybe we should consider a strategic withdrawal." "Live to fight another day," Chen shook her head. "No, Rodriguez. There won't be another day. Not for the Zephyrians still alive down there, and not for us if this swarm reaches human space." She opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen, we're going in. Target the ships attacking civilian bio-vessels first. Show these machines what happens when they threaten people under human protection." The Ravager response was swift and overwhelming. Thousands of fighters launched from the dreadnoughts, moving in perfect formation. Energy weapons charged, preparing to vaporize the tiny human fleet. But Admiral Chen had not survived 15 years of combat by playing fair. "Execute Operation Chaos," she ordered. The human ships scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that seemed random and insane. Instead of forming defensive formations, They dove directly into the enemy fleet, weaving between the massive dreadnoughts like fighters dodging through an asteroid field. The Ravager targeting systems, designed for conventional warfare, couldn't track the seemingly random human movements. Their perfect coordination became a weakness when the enemy refused to follow any logical tactical pattern. 1st Marine Battalion, prepare for boarding operations, Chen ordered. Colonel Morrison's voice came over the comm. Boarding operations? Admiral, those ships are the size of cities. Then we'll treat them like cities, Colonel. And cities can be conquered one building at a time. The human ships continued their insane dance through the enemy formation. When they got close enough to the dreadnoughts, they launched boarding pods, small armored capsules designed to punch through enemy hulls and deploy Marines inside. It was a tactic that no sane species would attempt. The boarding pods were tiny compared to the massive enemy ships. The Marines inside were outnumbered by millions to one. Any rational military would consider it suicide, but humans had learned long ago that sometimes the only way to win was to do something so crazy that the enemy couldn't plan for. And on the surface of Zephyria Prime, Marine Lieutenant Sarah Kim kicked down the door of what had once been a beautiful bioshelter. Inside, she found dozens of Zephyrian civilians huddled together in terror. They were tall, graceful beings with skin like bark and eyes like flowers. They looked at her with confusion and fear. Don't be afraid, Kim said, activating her universal translator. We're here to help. One of the Zephyrians, apparently their leader, stepped forward. His voice was like wind through leaves. You are human? The Deathworlders? Yeah, we're human. And right now we're your best friends. Can you get these people to safety? The bioshelters are failing. The Ravagers will break through soon. We have nowhere to run. Kim looked around the shelter. It was beautiful even in its desperation. Walls that pulsed with life, floors that felt soft and warm, air that smelled like growing things. It was everything humans had never had and everything the Ravagers were destroying. What if you didn't have to run? Kim asked. What if you could fight back? The Zephyrian looked shocked. Fight? We cannot. Violence is against our nature. So is extinction, Kim said bluntly. Sometimes your nature has to change, or you die. Outside the shelter, they could hear the sound of Ravager machines breaking through the upper levels. Mechanical voices echoed through the corridors, efficient and emotionless as they cataloged everything for harvesting. Kim activated her comm. Colonel Morrison, I've got about 40 civilians here, but they're trapped. The Ravagers are closing in. Morrison's voice crackled back. Can you hold position, Lieutenant? For maybe 10 minutes. After that, we're going to have company. Copy that. Help is coming. Kim turned back to the Zephyrians. Listen to me. Your people have technology we can't even dream of. You can grow ships that heal themselves, create living computers, manipulate genetics like we manipulate tools. All of that makes you incredibly powerful. But we use it only to create and heal, the leader protested. Today, you're going to learn to use it to protect what you've created. Kim pulled out her sidearm and checked the charge. Because if you don't learn to fight, everything you've ever grown is going to die. The sound of approaching Ravager machines grew louder. The Zephyrians pressed closer together, their fear obvious. These were beings who had never experienced violence, never needed to defend themselves, never imagined that their peaceful existence could be threatened. But Kim had seen the look in their eyes before. It was the same expression humans had worn when they first realized that the universe was trying to kill them. The moment when a species had to choose between adaptation and extinction. They're here, whispered. One of the Zephyrians, the first Ravager machine, rounded the corner, a spider-like construct of metal and circuitry, designed for efficient harvesting of organic materials. It saw the group of civilians and began calculating the most efficient processing method. Kim put 3 plasma bolts into its central processor before it could finish the calculation. The Zephyrians stared at the destroyed machine, then at Kim, then at each other. Something was changing in their faces. The helpless fear was being replaced by something harder, more determined. Teach us, the leader said quietly. Teach us to fight, Kim smiled. Now you're talking. First lesson, sometimes the only way to save a life is to take one. Above them, the battle for the Zephyrian system continued. Human ships danced through enemy formations while Marines fought desperately in the corridors of alien dreadnoughts. The odds were still impossible. The enemy still overwhelmingly powerful. but something new was beginning to emerge from the chaos. In bioshelters across the planet, humans were meeting with Zephyrian survivors, and for the first time in their peaceful history, the galaxy's most gentle species was learning what it meant to bare their teeth. Deep beneath the surface of Zephyria Prime, in hastily converted bioshelters that now served as command centers, the most unlikely alliance in galactic history was taking shape. Dr. Yuki Tanaka knelt beside a dying Zephyrian bioship, her hands covered in something that wasn't quite blood but served the same purpose. The living vessel had been shot down while trying to evacuate civilians, its organic hull torn open by Ravager weapons. But unlike human ships, this one was still trying to heal itself. "The neural pathways are still intact," she said to botanist Veltar, one of the few Zephyrian scientists who had survived the initial attack. "If we can interface human technology with your biosystems, we might be able to save it." Veltar's bark-like skin rippled with distress. To interfere with a living ship's natural processes, it feels wrong, like surgery without consent. "Sometimes," Dr. Tanaka said gently, "surgery is the only way to save a life. And right now, this ship might be the key to saving your entire species." Above them, they could hear the distant sounds of battle. Human Marines and Zephyrian civilians working together to hold defensive positions against Ravager assault teams. It was a desperate fight, but it was buying them time. Dr. Tanaka carefully inserted a human neural interface into the bioship's exposed control center. The ship shuddered, its surface rippling with what looked like pain. Then suddenly it began to glow with soft bioluminescent patterns. "It's working," breathed Veltar. "The ship is accepting the interface, but something is changing." On her scanner, Dr. Tanaka could see the ship's biological systems adapting in real time. The organic computers were learning to process human tactical data. The living hull was growing new structures that looked suspiciously like weapon mounts. "It's not just accepting our technology," she said in amazement. "It's improving on it. The ship is figuring out how to be a weapon while still being alive." In another part of the underground complex, Chief Engineer Martinez was having the discovery of his lifetime. The Zephyrian engineer he was working with, a being called Rootsinger, had just shown him something that defied everything he knew about technology. "You mean the ship grows its own replacement parts?" Martinez asked for the third time. "Of course," Rootsinger replied, his voice like rustling leaves. "Why would you build something that cannot heal itself? That is like creating a creature without the ability to breathe." Martinez stared at the bioship components spread before him. Living metal that could repair itself. Organic circuits that grew stronger when damaged. Biological computers that learned and adapted without programming. "Back home, when something breaks, we fix it with spare parts or we throw it away," he said slowly. "But your ships, they fix themselves. They get better every time they're hurt." "Yes. But they have never needed to hurt others. They know only how to create and maintain and heal." Martinez grinned. "Well, today they're going to learn some new tricks. Rootsinger, I want to show you what happens when you take something that can heal itself and teach it to bite back." Colonel Morrison was dealing with a different kind of challenge. In the main command chamber, surrounded by wounded Marines and traumatized Zephyrian civilians, he was trying to explain concepts that the aliens had never needed to understand. "Defense is not just about protecting yourself," he said to a group of Zephyrian leaders. "It's about making sure the other guy can't hurt anyone else." Elder Branchwalker, the oldest surviving member of the Zephyrian Council, shook his head sadly. "But to deliberately cause harm, it goes against everything we are. Everything we have built our civilization upon." "I understand," Morrison said. "But look around you. Your civilization is dying because you never learned to defend it. Sometimes being peaceful means being prepared to fight for peace." A young Zephyrian named Thornzinger spoke up. "The humans are right, Elder. I watched my family garden get dissolved by the machines. They turned centuries of careful growth into raw materials in minutes. If being peaceful means letting that happen, then maybe peace is not enough." Elder Branchwalker looked around the chamber. Everywhere he looked, he saw the fruits of Ravager efficiency. Beautiful biotechnology torn apart. Ancient living structures reduced to base elements. Generations of artistic growth wiped out in hours. "What would you have us do?" he asked Morrison. "Learn to be gardeners with teeth," Morrison replied. "Learn to protect what you've grown. And learn to make sure that anyone who tries to destroy it regrets the attempt." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young Zephyrian named Bloomtender had been working with Dr. Tanaka on the Bioship Interface project. Unlike the older Zephyrians, Bloomtender seemed to adapt quickly to human concepts. "I think I understand now," Bloomtender said suddenly. "You humans, you think of conflict as natural, like weather or growth or death. It is simply another force to adapt to." "That's right," Dr. Tanaka said. "On Earth, everything was always trying to kill us. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, other humans. We learned to survive by becoming very good at fighting back. And now you want to teach us the same adaptation?" "Yes. But you have advantages we never had. Your technology is alive. It can learn and grow and change in ways our machines never could." Bloomtender was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he placed his hands on the modified bioship's control surface. The ship responded immediately, its bioluminescent patterns shifting to match his thoughts. "Show me," he said. "Show me how to make beauty that bites." The first hybrid vessel launched 6 hours later. It looked like nothing that had ever existed before. A living ship that combined Zephyrian biotechnology with human weapon systems. Its hull rippled with organic muscle and sinew, but mounted human plasma cannons that could swivel and fire independently. Its brain was a fusion of biological computer and human tactical AI. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the Endeavour as the hybrid ship engaged a Ravager fighter squadron. The enemy machines moved in perfect formation, their tactics efficient and predictable. The bioship moved like a living creature, flowing around their attacks and striking back with weapons that seemed to anticipate their movements. "It's learning," reported Lieutenant Torres with amazement. "Every time they shoot at it, it gets better at dodging. Every time it shoots back, its aim improves." The bioship destroyed 3 Ravager fighters in the first engagement, then 5 in the second. By the third encounter, it was moving through their formations like a predator among prey. "Admiral," came Bloomtender's voice over the comm, "this is extraordinary. The ship does not just follow orders. It understands them. It wants to protect its creators." Other hybrid ships were launching now. Each one was different, shaped by the personality and needs of its Zephyrian pilot. Some were sleek and fast, others were heavily armored. All of them moved with a grace that human ships couldn't match and fought with a viciousness that Zephyrian vessels had never possessed. But the real breakthrough came when Elder Branch Walker himself took control of a modified bioship. The ancient Zephyrian had been reluctant to embrace violence, but when he saw Ravager machines attacking a fleeing civilian transport, something fundamental changed in his nature. "Harmony must be protected," he said quietly, his voice carrying over the fleet communications. "Growth must be defended. If that requires conflict, then we will learn conflict." The bioship under his control transformed, its surface flowing like liquid as it grew new weapon systems in real time. It engaged a Ravager dreadnought, a ship 100 times its size, and began systematically tearing it apart. "How is he doing that?" asked Commander Rodriguez. Dr. Tanaka checked her readings. "The ship is adapting its structure to exploit weaknesses in the Ravager design. It's growing through their armor, disrupting their systems from the inside. It's not just fighting them, it's infecting them." The tide of battle was beginning to turn. The Ravager swarm, designed to overwhelm enemies with superior numbers and coordination, had no defense against weapons that adapted in real time. Their mechanical precision became a liability when facing opponents that could change their tactics moment by moment. But Admiral Chen knew this was just the beginning. Even with the hybrid ships, they were still vastly outnumbered. The real test would come when the Ravagers adapted their own tactics to counter the new threat. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast to the combined human Zephyrian fleet. "Phase 1 is complete. We've shown them that we can fight. Now we're going to show them what happens when gardeners go to war." The response came from both human and Zephyrian crews, united now in purpose, if not in nature. They had learned to combine human aggression with Zephyrian adaptability. They had created something that neither species could have achieved alone. And deep in the bioship's living computers, new thoughts were forming. Thoughts about protection and growth and the terrible beauty of necessary violence. The ships were learning not just to fight, but to want to fight for the things they had been created to protect. The galaxy's most peaceful species was discovering what it meant to have fangs. And they were finding that they liked the feeling. The Ravager swarm had conquered 17 star systems without encountering meaningful resistance. Their mechanical minds had cataloged every possible form of defense, analyzed every known military tactic, and developed counters for all conceivable threats they had not planned for. Bioships that phased through their shields like they were made of water. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the Endeavor as Elder Branchwalker's hybrid vessel simply flowed through the energy barriers protecting a Ravager dreadnought. The bioship's living hull had adapted its molecular structure, becoming temporarily permeable to energy, while remaining solid enough to carry its human-designed weapons. "How is that possible?" asked Commander Rodriguez. "The ship is learning to exist in multiple states simultaneously," Dr. Tanaka explained, her voice filled with scientific excitement. "It's treating the shields like a hostile environment and adapting to survive in it." The bioship emerged inside the dreadnought's shields and immediately began growing. Its hull extended tendrils that burrowed into the enemy vessel's systems, spreading like a virus through the mechanical networks. Where the organic growth touched Ravager technology, the machines simply stopped working. "The Zephyrian ship is rewriting their code," reported Lieutenant Torres. "It's not destroying the systems, it's converting them." Admiral Chen activated her comm. "Elder Branchwalker, what's your status?" The ancient Zephyrian's voice came back calm and strangely satisfied. "The machine ship fights its conversion, but biological systems are more adaptable than mechanical ones. It will serve the cause of growth soon." On the tactical display, they could see the Ravager dreadnought's status changing from hostile to neutral to something else entirely. The massive ship was still there, but it was no longer moving in formation with the swarm. Instead, it had begun attacking its former allies. "The bioship converted the entire dreadnought," Rodriguez said in amazement. "It turned an enemy capital ship into an ally in less than 10 minutes. The effect rippled through the Ravager formation. Their coordination, their greatest strength, became their greatest weaknesses. Converted ships began transmitting false orders and corrupted data throughout the swarm's network." Colonel Morrison's voice crackled over the comm from his position on the planet's surface. "Admiral, you need to see this. The Zephyrians down here, they're changing." Chen activated the surface feed and immediately understood what Morrison meant. The surviving Zephyrian civilians had emerged from their shelters and were working together in ways she had never seen before. They moved with purpose and efficiency, but also with something that looked disturbingly like hunger. "They're not just defending anymore," Morrison continued. "They're hunting. They've organized into groups and they're actively seeking out Ravager ground forces." On screen, Chen could see a group of Zephyrians surrounding a Ravager harvesting machine. But instead of attacking it with weapons, they were touching it with their bare hands. Where they touched, the machine's metal surface began to change, becoming organic, growing, adapting. "They're converting the machines directly," Dr. Tanaka breathed, "using their biological manipulation abilities to rewrite Ravager technology at the cellular level." The harvesting machine shuddered, then began to move differently. Instead of stripping resources from the planet's surface, it started replanting them. The Ravager construct had become a gardening tool. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Tanaka continued. "They're not destroying their enemies, they're absorbing them, making them part of their own ecosystem." Bloom Tender's voice came over the comm from his hybrid bioship. "Dr. Tanaka, we are learning things about ourselves that we never knew. The capacity for conflict was always within us. We simply never had reason to discover it. And now that you have, now we understand that true growth requires the ability to defend what you have grown. And sometimes the best defense is to make your enemies into your allies." The battle was turning into something beyond a military engagement. It was becoming an ecosystem clash between two fundamentally different approaches to existence. The Ravagers sought to consume and convert everything into mechanical uniformity. The Zephyrians, guided by human tactical knowledge, sought to adapt and convert everything into biological diversity. And the Zephyrians were winning. Admiral Chen watched as more bioships emerged from the planet's surface. These weren't the gentle transport vessels the Zephyrians had used before. These were predators, grown specifically for war, shaped by minds that had learned to think like hunters. "Admiral," came a new voice over the comm. It was Thornzinger, the young Zephyrian who had lost his family garden to the Ravagers. "I have a proposal." "Go ahead, Thornzinger. The swarm is running from something worse, yes? Something from the galactic core that even they fear. That's what our intelligence suggests. Then we should not simply defeat them here. We should convert them, make them our allies, use their numbers and their technology to prepare for what is coming. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. The young Zephyrian was thinking on a scale that dwarfed the current battle. He wasn't just planning to win, he was planning to build an army. That's ambitious, she said carefully. Admiral, Thornzinger continued, my people have learned much from yours. We have learned that growth requires protection, that protection sometimes requires violence, and that violence can be a tool of creation as well as destruction. But we have also learned something else. What's that? We have learned to be patient, to think in terms of decades and centuries instead of moments. The threat from the galactic core will reach human space eventually. When it does, it will face not just human ships or Zephyrian biovessels, but something new, something that neither of our species could have created alone. On the tactical display, the remaining Ravager ships were attempting to retreat, but the bioships were pursuing them with relentless efficiency. Each captured vessel was quickly converted, its mechanical systems rewritten to serve biological imperatives. They're not just winning, Commander Rodriguez observed. They're recruiting. Dr. Tanaka's readings confirmed what they could all see. The conversion process is accelerating. Each converted ship becomes more efficient at converting others. It's exponential growth. Elder Branchwalker's voice came over the general comm channel, addressing all ships in the combined fleet. Children of Earth and children of Zephyria, today we have learned that there are many ways to grow. Sometimes growth requires reaching toward the light. Sometimes it requires reaching into the darkness and bringing the light with you. The last Ravager dreadnought in the system transmitted a final message before its conversion was complete. The mechanical voice was distorted, mixing electronic precision with organic adaptability. This is not possible. Biological systems cannot achieve this level of coordination. This level of evolution. Bloom Tender responded from his bioship. You are correct. Biological systems alone could not achieve this. Neither could mechanical systems alone. But together, guided by those who have learned to survive on death worlds, we become something new. Admiral Chen looked around her bridge. Her human crew was staring at the displays with mixtures of amazement and concern. They had come here to rescue refugees. Instead, they had helped create a new form of life that combined the best aspects of 3 different approaches to existence. Admiral, said Veltar from the planet's surface, the Ravagers' databases are intact. We now have access to their star charts, their technology, and their intelligence on the threat from the galactic core. What does it show? Something vast. Something old. Something that consumes not just matter and energy, but space and time themselves. The Ravagers were fleeing from it, but they were never going to escape. They were simply delaying the inevitable. And now? Now we have time to prepare. Time to grow. Time to teach others what we have learned here. The battle for the Zephyrian system was over, but Admiral Chen realized that something much larger was just beginning. The conversion of the Ravager fleet had given them not just ships and technology, but knowledge of threats that spanned the galaxy. Communications, she ordered. Send a message to Earth Command and to every human colony. Tell them that humanity has found its role in the galaxy. What should I tell them, Admiral? Chen looked at the tactical display, where bioships and converted Ravager vessels were already beginning to modify themselves for long-range travel. The Zephyrians were preparing to take their new philosophy of protective growth to other worlds, other species that might need to learn the same lessons. Tell them that we're no longer just explorers or traders or warriors. We're teachers. We teach survival to those who need to learn it. We teach adaptation to those who have become stagnant. And we teach cooperation to those who have forgotten that the universe is too dangerous to face alone. 6 months later, reports began reaching Earth of strange alliances forming throughout the galaxy. Peaceful species were learning to defend themselves. Aggressive species were learning to cooperate. And everywhere these changes occurred, there were rumors of ships that seemed to be alive, guided by crews that included humans and beings that had once been pacifists.